Hello, fellow magicians. Welcome back to the channel. In this episode, we are going to discuss the story of an author, a writer, and see if she really killed herself because she discovered how hard it is to be a man. Stay with me and I'll tell you the story. Life is a battle, and spirituality is the toolkit you need to survive it. Through my own personal experience, I will show you how to live spirituality on a daily basis. This is also the journal of the Averamento Sustainable Community, an experiment on human evolution, seeking to create a different type of human society based on sacred principles. Alright, so hello fellow magicians and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to discuss with you the story of Norah Vincent. I found her story randomly, you know when YouTube sometimes suggests videos for you. So I was scrolling down those videos and I found her story, the story of Norah Vincent. And a lot of videos related to her were saying and claiming that she killed herself because she couldn't bear the pain of being a man. And I was intrigued. And of course, I started watching a few of these videos, but also doing my own research into who she was on her own words, or in her own words. So exploring the life of Norah Vincent also opened the door to other things. And that's why, I took a week off and I didn't post any videos last week because I wanted to do this series of videos that I'm going to call a series of the Battle of the Sexes. And yeah, this is going to be a series of 5 videos so far. And this is going to be the first one. Norah Vincent was an author, a writer. She was born on September 20th of 1968, and she died on July 6th of 2022, so quite recently. In 2000, and I think it has to be 2003, 2004, something like that. She came up with the idea of going through a social experiment. And the experiment was that she was going to live as a guy, like, fully dressed as a guy and interact with other men for 18 months. Nora was a big woman. She was 5'10". She wore size 11 shoes. So she was big and she could easily pass as a guy once she was dressed up.
When all the pieces are together, hair, makeup, voice, posture, style, the transformation is complete. Walk like a man, talk like a man, walk like a man. And Norah Vincent becomes Ned Vincent.
And so she did that, and she, did what guys do. She joined a bowling club. She even went to strip clubs. She even went on therapy groups and whatnot. So she fully lived as a guy for 18 months. And after that, she wrote a book that is called Self-Made Man. This book was actually published in 2006. So I didn't read the book, but I'm gonna base this video on videos that she actually did. After she went through the experiment, she gave an interview to the program 2020 done by BBC. So another fact is that after writing the book Self-Made Man, she wrote a second book that is called Voluntary Madness, and this book was published in 2008. So it seems like after a week of finishing the experiment, the first experiment of living as a guy, she suffered a depression breakdown, or a depressive breakdown. So she self-committed to a mental institution, and that's why she wrote the second book that is called Voluntary Madness. The interesting thing about that is that, there's a second video where Norah is presenting this second book of Voluntary Madness. And on that interview, she's giving a reading on a bookstore, I think. She actually uh, disclaims that she has suffered, or she had suffered, from depression throughout her life. She was actually familiar with a few drugs. She names a few, Prozac, and the other one is called Depakote or something like that. And it seems like she had some experience with psychiatric drugs.
I had a history of depression with occasional mild hypomanic episodes, or so the diagnosis of my former private psychiatrist had indicated. But when I had checked myself into Merriweather, I was feeling good, quite good. Especially when you consider how scary it is to throw yourself anonymously into what you can't help thinking of, per the liberties of one too many Hollywood movies, as the darkest heart of darkness in the concrete jungle.
When I started researching about her and her life and what happened to her, it's really weird, or sounded really weird to me, that the claim that she committed suicide because she went on this experiment. First of all, yes, she went through assisted death on July 6th, but it was July 6th of 2006, 2022. So it was 14 years after the event, after the experiment that she made. And on top of that, she actually discloses that she had suffered before with depression. She was a depressive person, and she had this issue before going into that experiment. And when she came out of the experiment, of course, the experience in itself uh, pushed her through a depressive breakdown. But I think that here is very interesting that the the things that she says and she concludes in her with her experiment. She says, and I quote, and this comes from the BBC report or interview. She said that one of her conclusions was that she thinks that men are suffering a lot because between men, and this is the quote, between men, intimacy is lacking. And she continues, from a young age, men are discouraged to express emotions. By the time they are adults, they don't even have the vocabulary or awareness to say what they are feeling. And so she concluded that it seems that there's a lot of pain between male interaction because of this lack of intimacy. And here it's interesting because when she interacted as a man, a lot of men thought that she was gay because she was very feminine. And when she was a woman, as she was actually a tomboy. So that's an interesting thing.
The tears and the emotional expression sort of pounded out of them from an early age, and so by the time they're men, they don't even have the vocabulary anymore, or the emotional awareness to really say what they're feeling.
Another interesting thing that Nora did on this experiment is that she went on a men's only therapy group, or retirement, or one of these weekends for men. Well, when she was in this therapy group, a lot of the guys there started to express a lot of anger and rage towards women, like towards their wife, or their female companions.
Was unraveling, and the play acting at a men's wilderness encounter group would begin to scare her.
One guy had chopped up a log pretending it was his wife. So I thought, great, we're going to have axes and knives. So I was terrified.
loneliness can't hide. Norah thought the perfect end to her 18-month saga was to join a men-only therapy group, a place where guys tried to bond and show their emotions instead of hiding them.
They don't get to show the weakness. They don't get to show the affection, especially with each other. And so often all of their emotions are shown in rage.
Another conclusion is that, and she says, gender is much more than a costume, that gender is an identity that cannot be messed with. That is not just, putting on some makeup or, suddenly putting on some beer or whatnot. That is just, that is the expression of the other gender. Gender is actually more complex than that. It actually can be traumatic for people that are not willing to go through that experience, as in the case of Nora, right? She, after a week of going through the experiment, she committed herself to a mental institution because she had a depressive breakdown. But I think that it's interesting that when she was interacting as a man, she was perceived as being too feminine, and actually potentially being gay. Because this tells you something about the quality of interaction between women and men. If there's intimacy lacking in male friendships, the problem with that is that, we as human beings need intimacy. And of course, men are afraid to express that intimacy or to have an intimate relationship with another man because of uh, the social stigma that entails, which is kind of sad. So, men usually have that level of intimacy, of human intimacy, and I'm not talking about like physical intimacy, but I'm talking about emotional intimacy. They have that level of human intimacy, or they get that level of human intimacy from women, and that's how they can change a little bit their interactions and start exploring their emotions. But what happens when that interaction is disconnected and is actually cut off? Then what is going to be the alternative for men, right? And so, yeah, I think that a lot of these issues that Nora was undercovering or exploring actually talk a lot about masculine or toxic masculinity, this term that is actually very used and quite popular right now. Uh, all right, so my conclusion of this research is that Nora didn't went through assisted suicide because she couldn't bear the pain of being a woman or being a man. There's actually a famous experiment of what would happen if men would actually experience the pain of giving birth. And it's really funny because these guys couldn't even go through the pain of a common menstrual period pain, right? So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that the important thing about this issue is to compare or say that men suffer more than women, or women suffer less, or anything like that. All of us have a different cross, and all of us have history, and all of us have to deal with pain. I think that the important lesson about this is what she was saying about male interaction and the lack of intimacy. This lack of emotion and emotional interaction between men, like deep emotional interaction, like intimate emotional interaction between men. And she said that she thought that they were suffering because of that. And actually, she, by her withdrawing from the regular intimacy that we have amongst women, of course, her emotions were pushed to the limit where she suffered depressive breakdown. So I think that that's the important lesson here. There's something deeper in what she experimented, and something deeper on this truth that she uncovered, and that is toxic masculinity. So if you want to know more about toxic masculinity, stay tuned for my next video. For now, I thank you for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much, fellow magicians, for staying with me till the end of this chapter. I also want to make a request that you please subscribe to this channel and give it a like and share it with your friends, because that will help me grow and keep doing videos that are spiritual and that are meant to help other people. As usual, I'm looking for members to the community that I'm creating. If you're interested, I'm gonna leave the link to the community down in the description of this video. And as always, if you want me to expand on any of the topics that I touch here, please write a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next chapter.